the station of unlimited possibilities, presents Creating Your Seat at the Table with your host, Ashley Little, as she welcomes her guest to the table.
Welcome to Creating Your Seat at the Table. I am your host, Ashley Little. A little bit about myself: corporate professional by day, entrepreneur by night, 5-time best-selling author, CEO and founder of Ashley Little Enterprises, LLC, owner and creator of Creative Broadcasting, and founder and owner of Talk Radio and TV Network, LLC. Tonight we have an amazing special VIP guest by the name of Lavonda Rouse. A little bit about her. The new brainchild from entertainment executive Lavonda is a blend and inspirational talk show debuting in fall 2018. The series seeks to heal spirit, mind, and body by bringing together a panel of four African American health experts for a lively hour that helps viewers live more empowered lives. Lavonda came up with the idea for the show after she faced her own health crisis. On an initiative level, she felt that there was a component to her healing that went beyond her surgeon's routine skill set. For the best outcome, I felt that I needed someone who had the cultural competency to relate to me. So I prayed to God for an African-American woman doctor. And as she interviewed with health professionals, a black female surgeon emerged whom she clicked with, and she went on to have a successful operation. Back to full strength, Lavonda realized that her life was not the only one in need of healing. Ideas began to percolate. She became determined to help remove barriers black women often face as they seek to live fully realized lives. I created the blend because there's a need to bring black women to the forefront, she said. American culture has conditioned us to receive information from everyone but black women. Twice I remember reading about situations in which flight attendants faced an emergency with a passenger, called for a doctor, but when black women doctors volunteered, they were looked absent. It was as if they didn't fit the profile of a physician, so it took everyone a minute to move past their biases, and that needs to change. Lavonda has witnessed seedings of this change with the Black Girl Magic movement, the rise of black women with the new Miss America, tennis, Serena Williams, and Naomi, Issa Rae's vision on HBO, singer Rihanna's Fenty Beauty makeup line, and even politician Stacey Abrams and Ayanna Pressley, who stepped up on a national stage eager to lead. This has a financial component as well. Black women entrepreneurs enjoyed the highest rate of growth, 67%. And the number of firms they held primary ownership over from 2007 to 2015 was more than $42 billion in sales. Lavonda tapping into her own entrepreneur Black Girl Magic first came up with a show called The Lady Doctors 2 years ago. She shot a pilot, distributed online, and got respectable notices, but she has continued to tweak the idea. Her most recent creation, The Blend, referring to the mix of spirit, mind, and body, is now well positioned to deal with a wider range of issues drumming to black women's growth. A person of faith, Lavonda sees this as her ministry. She leads a God-driven life, which is why faith is the first ingredient in the blend. In this, she's on trend as several faith-focused shows are slated in the 2018 TV lineup series, such as Andy Mack, Living Biblically, and God Friended Me, all on either Disney or CBS this fall. Rather than shop the blend around and wait for a network executive to see the value in it, Lavonda chose a web-based show that also allowed me to maintain creative control, retain my rights, and make the series highly accessible. She hopes that means more black women will tune in. With The Blend, says Rouse, we have the opportunity to heal together. Welcome to the table, the amazing Lavonda Rouse.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you so much for having me this evening.
You are welcome. It is my pleasure, and you have such an amazing bio, Lavonda. So will you please tell our listeners more about your entrepreneur journey?
Well, for me, it all started as a child, knowing that I wanted to be a part of the arts in some manner. That's what I naturally gravitated towards as a little girl. I didn't dream of being a doctor or a lawyer or anything like that. I dreamt of, working in the industry. I'm from Los Angeles, California. I grew up in the city of Carson, and so, the arts and entertainment were just a part of my growing up. And so that aspect of my life, or that yearning to want to do, to be in this industry, that's what morphed my journey. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello? That's what morphed my, I'm sorry, there was a call coming in. That's what morphed my journey into knowing that in order for me to be able to express what I believe was germinating inside of me, I knew that I could not do that in a normal capacity of a 9 to 5. And although I tried to work, I worked for a United States Congresswoman, I worked in other capacities of working for someone, but I was never really quite fulfilled. But every time I wanted to move in the direction of art and entertainment, there was always this drive. There was this passion. There was this. I didn't even have to eat because it fueled me. There was an energy that came. So as a result of that, I just ignored what the naysayers were saying. Mainly, relatives, my own parents. They didn't understand why I could not work for somebody else, like everybody else does, because I had earned these degrees. And normally that's what you do. You go to college and you start working for someone else, and you buy a house. I mean, you get married, you buy a house, you have children, those kinds of things, that typical journey that people take. But for me, that just wasn't the call. So again, art and entertainment just morphed into the entrepreneurial spirit that I believe that God had planted in my heart, from the time He planted me in my mother's womb. And so from there, that's how it happened. I just started I started dreaming, I should say, hoping. I started seeing myself behind the scenes, producing, directing, writing, bringing people together, bringing elements together. I began to dream about production companies. Once I started working for because I at some point worked for a production company with Thomas Films, and I started seeing how all of these, how things come together, and the studio system. With Thomas Films had a first look deal with Warner Brothers, so I got to see the studio system and how that works, how some agents would send material from their particular writers or their talent, and they'd submit it to a production company, or they may submit it to the studio itself, and how it was examined, and if it was something that the studio felt like they wanted to produce, then I saw the process of how the scripts were submitted, from development to pre-production to production, and then finally that last state of course, post-production and then exhibition. And so just watching that process, I was taking it all in, and the desire in me for wanting to do my own was just being germinated. It was being, I didn't even know it at the time, but it was just coming alive. And so one day I remember a friend of mine who, at the time, a friend of mine had established she had established an agency, a theatrical agency, and her goal was, or her objective for her particular agency was to help men and women who were gospel artists who wanted to make the transition from gospel music to television and film. So that was her forte. That was how she kind of broke into that industry. So I was working for this film production company, and as I just described to you what was going on within me, I remember, talking with her one day and saying, hey, listen, you've got this aspect of your theatrical agency. What about a literary division? Because at the time there were the big four: UTA, William Morris, CAA, and it was one more. I can't think of it right now, but they were the big four. and the big four theatrical agencies. And so at that particular time, you could count on one hand the African American agents or literary agents. And I knew that that would be a route that I could possibly go, not necessarily an agent, but a literary manager, because I had worked for Whit Thomas Film Production, and I worked with the director of development. So I knew the process of how you secure screenplays from prospective talent, and then of course I described to you what that process would be: development, pre-production, production, and so forth. So as I watched that process, I said to her, listen, let me come over and start a literary division, but my emphasis will be specifically going after African-American writers. Now, this is over 20-something years ago, so you have to remember at the time, if a screenplay was submitted to, say, Whit Thomas Films, where I was working, and it was written by an African-American writer, well, that was the first thing that was said. This is an African-American writer. And so those kinds of screenplays were few and far between, and that fueled me. That made me want to go out. I started calling various colleges, universities that I knew had script writing or screenwriting programs. I started calling them and asking them to send the best material from from African American students, and so that I could include them, or at least see if they could be included in what you would call a weekend read. Because what happens when you're a part of a film production company, generally when the scripts are submitted and it's generally unsolicited material. It can't be unsolicited material. It has to come directly from an agent, a lawyer, a manager, something like that. So when you put that list together, it, like I said, it rarely had writers that were of African American, and so I started looking for those kinds of writers specifically, and to see if we could include those in the process. And once I got that down, I was like, wait a minute, what they're doing, I can do, and so that was my road to, to where I am today. I hope that made sense to you guys. I kind of went in my head someplace, but it's been a journey. It has been a true journey, and I'm still on that journey. But it hasn't been easy, but it's definitely been a journey.
I love it. So, Lavonda, you're determined to help remove barriers Black women face. Tell us more about your vision.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
You are determined to help remove barriers Black women face. Tell us more about your vision.
Oh, absolutely, Ashley. As a Black woman, I am a firm believer in imagery. I've shared this. I think I shared this with you as well. But I believe that we are conditioned, socially conditioned through imagery, and the power of imagery is what has caused many of us to form, these biases in our minds, and therefore we generally treat people accordingly. And so I'm determined to help sort of be a conduit for God as a person who can help our minds be renewed. And my thing is, if you've been conditioned through imagery, then you have to be reconditioned through imagery. So the only way that we can do that is to counter the images that are generally seen. Black women have been seen as, those tropes, the Hollywood tropes, as maids, as prostitutes, the darker-skinned woman as the bad person. These are things that we don't even realize what they've done to us over time. But when you are in relationship or you're dealing with people just in the general public, these things come up. And sometimes you don't even realize where they've come from, but it's been years and years and years and years of conditioning. And therefore, the voice of the Black woman, as I have stated before, we've been conditioned to receive from every person other than the Black woman. Just like those two women, as you heard and read in my bio, two separate incidents. These were actual incidents that occurred on two separate flights where the flight attendant called for the assistance of a doctor. 2 black women on separate flights answered that call, and they were basically rejected. Rejected based on what they look like. Not notwithstanding that these people, have the information to help. They were just rejected based on a look, and that comes from the simple fact that they have not seen enough images of black women serving as medical doctors. And so the only way that we can help recondition our world in which we live is through imagery. I've been to about 12 nations, and I can tell you now, those images are there long before you and I get there. And generally, at least my experience has been, I've been treated accordingly because of negative images that have been communicated throughout time.
And I agree with that, because that's so important, right, that we, put some light into that with bringing more attention to us as black women to make sure that we're, getting the type of respect that we deserve. So let's talk more about the media, Lavonda. So why did you decide to go into the media?
Like I shared with you earlier, for me, growing up as a little girl, it was truly a seed that was planted in my heart. I did not dream of doing anything outside of the arts. When people were asking me, what do you want to do? This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to work in the entertainment industry. Initially I thought performance, like most people, because that's what you're normally introduced to. But when I gave my life to the Lord for reals, and what I mean by that, where it was, no longer just going to church, but I was introduced in a real way to God. My life changed. My mindset was definitely being renewed, and therefore I thought I couldn't have Hollywood and God. And my pastor at the time, he agreed, and so I literally walked away from it all. And I remember I'm a graduate of Oral Roberts University out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And when my first semester there, I went to see Jesus Christ Superstar, the musical. And I remember walking away from this theater piece and walking towards my dormitory and just crying from the depths of my being. And, I was crying because I knew that this was my first love. It was the only thing I had ever really wanted to do. I mean, I didn't come from parents who wanted who wanted to participate in the arts, but for me, it was just natural. And I remember, God letting me know, daughter, I have not taken this away from you. I'm just going to show you another aspect of this. And that's when I was introduced to the behind the scenes. And when I was introduced to the behind the scenes, that is the producing, the directing, the writing, bringing the elements together, the real creative process, the real control, if you want to creative control, if I'd like to add, that's when I realized, my journey up until that point was preparing me to be able to, at some point become the executive producer of a show like The Blend and other projects that are in development. So for me, my love for the arts was just natural. It was just something that I wanted to do from the time I was a little girl.
I love that. I absolutely love your journey and your story. So now you want to create the Blend Talk Show, the CEO and founder of the Blend Talk Show. So tell us more about the Blend Talk Show and how we can listen and get involved.
Well, let me just say, the Blend, some people would look and say, well, it's not hard to create a talk show. we have to really understand the difference between a person who works in this industry and who kind of just do, they just do things, or people who create art. You can create art with a talk show. You can create art with a talk show in the way that with the production, what it looks like, the cast, the costuming, the lighting, the set, the topics, how, your segments, the actual format, I should say, of the show. You can create art in that look. And so I don't want to mislead people and in this conversation of just saying, okay, I'm just doing a talk show, because I can tell you right now, that has never been a goal of mine. To do a talk show was not a goal, but as the bio stated, right before I was about to have an outpatient surgery, my prayer, based on what you said in the bio, was, I'd love to have somebody, Father, that's, culturally competent, who would understand me. And I literally had this epiphany that if I feel this way, I know other Black women feel this way. And then this was the way through ministry to serve women who are generally underserved. And the talk show format is the way that it can be done, because it provides or disseminates information, but it also, in the process of educating, it can entertain. And that's what I wanted it to do. But what I wanted most of all, more than anything, was for people to be reminded that we are whole. We are whole person. And in order to be a whole person, you have to include the spirit of a person. You can't just deal with the mind and deal with the body and forget the real person, which is your spirit. And that's what I wanted. Any project that I'm working on, that's the foundation for my project. A holistic perspective, a holistic creative process, a holistic creation. And so this is just not, it's just not a talk show. This talk show was a journey. It started as the Lady Doctors because, as I share with you, the epiphany, this was a way to reach Black women, the underserved community, to educate, to entertain, but to speak to us about issues, or I shouldn't say issues, but challenges that are sometimes, not sometimes, most of the time, all the time, are not considered or not taken, other people don't take into consideration, I should say, and bring those kinds of challenges to the forefront and so that we can be healed. This is a healing show. This is a show that encompasses or has such a dimension, 3-dimension, spirit, mind, body, but it has the whole person in mind. So we started with the Lady Doctor. It evolved into the blend because I believe that the blend, the title within itself, causes people to say, well, why would you call it the blend? And then that would open up the door for me to be able to say, because at some point, the whole person has to be in harmony with itself or with herself. And that is your spirit, mind, and body has to be one. And so the blend is not just a talk show, but I call it's a movement. So it is a movement that hopefully will, one person at a time, beginning with myself, will be able to travel throughout this world, the diaspora in particular, and women will see themselves, be enlightened, be educated, entertained, but more importantly, will be edified, and at some point be able to see themselves the way God intended us to see ourselves. Again, starting with me.
I love that.
Hello.
Which is what leads me to my next question, because it's very relevant to what you just spoke about. What are some of the pros and cons for Black women in media?
You know what? A lot of people talk about Black people have a hard time in media, particularly in the past. I think for right now, it's actually really pretty good. I think Ava DuVernay, Lena Waithe, Shonda Rhimes, and unnamed women that have been working behind the scenes for many, many years, your Debbie Allens and so forth. I mean, they have literally paved the way so that the time that we are actually in right now, I think is, for lack of a better word, is golden. These women are doing very good work. They're bosses. I mean, they're getting projects greenlit. And the time in which we're living, especially as it relates to the internet and how that just changed the whole game. I mean, you don't really actually need a studio to say, okay, we're going to do your project, or a production company to, get on board. I mean, you can just take it straight to YouTube and other social media platforms or other platforms that are geared towards that. So Black women, the pros and cons for Black women right now in the media, that pro right now is, if you have a desire to do this, it's your passion. You don't have to wait on anybody to give you the approval. You just need to you just need to know what you want to, the story you want to tell, and then you bring the elements that are needed, and you tell that story, and then you can exhibit that on any of those platforms that are available to do that. I think the con of that is, I am all about quality. Don't just do anything. Be thoughtful. It's such a responsibility with imagery. And so I would say, be careful, be thoughtful, be prayerful. Know what it is that you want to say, because basically you are saying something when you create. And so know what you want to communicate. And when you know this, communicate it effectively, communicate it with quality, and be responsible. Responsibility is what stands out for me. And I don't think some of us are. I think we want to be known for stuff, and we want to do some things. But we have to think about those things, the language that's utilized. I'm not saying don't be real, because that's very big now. I'm saying be responsible.
Yes, be responsible. Quality, right? Quality.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I love that.
Yes.
For our listeners that are listening, that is so, so, so important. So, do you feel that there will be an increase, Lavonda, of women in media years to come?
Oh, absolutely. Come on. I mean, women in media, yes, absolutely. I mean, I period. That's happening as we speak, and it's particularly behind the scenes. Like, again, I just named a few of those women. I remember Shonda Rhimes over 20-something years ago when I was working for Whit Thomas Films, and the script was called Human Seeking Sane. I believe that's what it was called. And I believe she was the author of that screenplay, but this was many, many, many years ago. And I remember when I heard about this woman at the time, I, was able to lunch her a couple times, and try to woo her myself so that I could manage her, because at that time I realized this woman had something that was special. And, hence 20-something years later, you can see the impact that she has in Hollywood. So absolutely, yes, I do think women are going to continue to move in this medium, and in much bigger ways.
Yes, because our voices needs to continue to be heard, and yes, I agree with you there. And I know we have some listeners that are listening that are thinking about doing their own TV show, Lavonda. So what is some advice you would give to listeners who are looking to have their own TV show? What should they be prepared for?
You know what? I think the first thing people think about is, well, how am I going to pay for it?
Right.
Because the reason why everybody's not doing this, because it is expensive. It can become very expensive. But the beautiful thing about it is, because of the internet, as I stated earlier, it has created a level playing field that you have the opportunity to upload your content on various platforms, literally, free. And therefore, what I would say is you have to really think about what it is, again, what you're going to be communicating. Develop the thing, develop it through. Organize. Organizing is the most important aspect, I believe, of producing content, because it will determine, like, say if you've got money, your budget is about, hypothetically, you've got a $10,000 budget, and you've got, you want to tell this, you're creating a situation comedy, half hour. You've got a week to shoot it in. It's $10,000, and mind you, that $10K is going from, cast, it's crew, and all the trappings that go along with production. Well, in order for you to be able to utilize that money effectively, the way you do that is through organization. It's utilizing that time for production well. And once you do that and you learn that, the art of that, trust me, you're able to stay on budget, sometimes even go under budget, and you're able to produce, I believe, a quality project. Now, it doesn't mean that everybody's going to like what you're doing, but at least you are able to get in the habit of the production process and what that entails, because it is a lot that has to be done. You have to be a very detail-oriented person, and you really need to assemble a good team. I'm not talking about folks that's playing at this. I'm talking about people that really, really, truly want to do this, who feel like this is their life's calling. And so in order for you to do, and it doesn't happen overnight. You're going to learn the first 5, 10 times. But then after that, you will be that pro where you're able to bring those crews together, assess what is needed, and carry it out. That's why producers can have simultaneously, 3, 4, 5 projects going on, because why? They've learned how to assemble that proper team, and all they have to do is just, hey, okay, I'll be coming over to watch what you're doing here, and go to the next set and so forth. So I would just say, don't be afraid to step out on faith, and if God has laid something on your heart, do it. Don't wait until you get the money. Okay, this is just my philosophy, and this is my theology in which I practice, which is I step out on faith. When God, laid it on my heart to do the Lady Doctors, I had to believe him every step of the way, and that budget was $40K, and I'm telling you, he supplied every need. When it was time for me to do the blend, the episodes in which we did, I stepped out in faith, believing, started preparing, assembling people, doing everything that I needed to do. Didn't have a dime in my pocket, but just believed that it was going to happen. And you know what? I had a beautiful couple that believed in what I was doing, and they gave me several $100,000 to, carry this vision out. So I'm saying to you is that don't let the money be the holdup. Do what it is you need to do. Right, first you got to have a concept, and then develop that concept, and then, whatever that concept needs to come into fruition, that is what you do. Step out on faith. I know that was a bit long-winded, but that was a process.
Yes, don't let the money be the hold-up. Step out on faith. Develop a concept, right? I love all the.
Well, you have to start with a concept. I mean, that's where it all comes from. You got to have something that you want, to build upon.
And it has to be different, right? You got to be able to stand out, because that's going to play a part of how long you're going to stay on, right? Can you talk more about that?
As far as what? What are you talking about? As far as your show?
As far as if people watching your ratings, and let's talk about that. You want people to want to listen to your show. You want to bring some type of something new, different than what's already there, right? So can we talk more about that?
Yeah, but media has changed so much. I mean, back in the day when it was your ABC, your NBC, your CBS, your Fox, and so forth, you definitely had to watch all of that kind of stuff. But now you have so many platforms and where your material can be uploaded that I don't necessarily, I'm not saying that numbers don't count, because people are always looking for, even on these streaming networks, who likes you, who's watching, and so forth. But it's much different than it was in times past. People come now with creative ways of marketing. I think this is what really causes people to stand out, is, some character, like these reality shows. Well, in order for you to really stand out, you have to have some, some type of conflict or some characters on there that make people want to talk. So yes, people, I would say in the traditional form, that's exactly what you have to have a gimmick or something. I won't, forgive me for calling it a gimmick, but there has to be something that will keep the people's attention. But that's when you have to know who your audience is. Like, I know I'm not trying to reach everybody in the world per se as it relates to a talk show like this, because I have been told, well, Lavonda, if you really want this show, to transcend the cultural barriers and so forth, then you need to have let's just say it doesn't need to be all black. And for me, I feel like I watch programs all the time that have, all Caucasian men or all Caucasian women or other nationalities or ethnicities. And I'm not, I don't have a problem with that. And therefore, why is it a problem, or why does it become a problem when you have all black women sitting at a table? So you're telling me that this show won't go past a certain demographic if it's all black women. And I beg to differ. I believe if you have good content, people will watch your show. If the show is doing what it's supposed to do, like when you watch The Doctors, because we're more on the fashion of The Doctors meets The View kind of thing, that if you're providing the audience with the information that's needed, people don't care if you black, white, Asian, Latina, it doesn't matter. It's good content. So that genre talk show is totally different than, the reality shows that you see where, they have to fight and fuss and cuss and have fashion statements being made. That's a whole different genre. And then, of course, the other shows that, your dramas, I'm doing something totally different from that right now. But if I were working in those drama capacities in those different genres, which I will be, then yes, you need characters that people will fall in love with. Ava DuVernay's Queen Sugar. We're fascinated with that particular show because, first of all, it's just done well. It's written well. It's lit well. It's shot well. And the characters are just people that you want to know. Your Aunt Viv and the others. Well, I think, her name is not Aunt Viv. I can't think of her name right now, but the aunt, Tina Lifford, who plays the aunt. I mean, you're totally drawn to her. And therefore, I believe you definitely have to have something that causes people to want to come back. But quality, I'll go back to that every time. Content, good content will bring or will cross barriers any day of the week. Any day of the week. Did that answer the question? Because I have a tendency to kind of go on it.
Absolutely. Yeah. For our listeners, quality and good content. Amazing.
Yeah.
Like it. So, Lavonda, you have built multiple tables for yourself, and you continue to build tables. So I asked all of my guests this question. How did you create your seat at the table?
Well, I think I've shared that, in the journey so far is these things for me, they have not happened overnight. I'm still not where I believe God is going to allow me to go. But this journey, and it's beautiful. I love journeys because I love this journey. My journey that I'm on is because up until this point, I have been prepared for what I'm doing. I am so grateful that 20 years ago, when I thought that this all should have happened, and I thought I was with the right people and it should have worked out. You know what? I was not ready. The journey is the beautiful thing that we all must experience, because when you do get in or start creating, as you stated, a table for yourself, you need to be tried and true. You need to know what you are doing. Now, doesn't mean that you don't still have something to learn. It just means that when you are in that position, as they say, when preparation and opportunity meet, you need to be ready to go. And if you ain't ready to go because you ain't been through nothing, you haven't had that process, then you're just going to be a person who is like the one-hit wonders. You have a great song for that year, but then we never hear from you again. And so I thank God that I've been in that oven baking for a while. So as he allows, other projects to come my way to be further developed, I'm ready for these tables to expand. And so eventually, we start with talk show, film, other dramas, network, other things that will come out of this. But the most important thing for me in creating a table is that you get to, it's a great word, that thing, table, because that means that you normally are going to have some other people sitting around that table with you. And that's the most exciting aspect of all of this for me, is just being able to open the door or share the spot with others. I just absolutely thank God for the opportunity to help other people, live their dreams as people have helped me live my dream. And I like to keep it in the real. This is not fantastical. I'm not known all over Hollywood right now. That's not my goal. My goal is to do quality work. And thank God that there are avenues that will allow my work to be seen, and that I don't have to go and beg and compromise my stance for anyone, because, I now know that I can always go elsewhere with my projects. And, so creating a table is a journey. It's a process. But I thank God that he's allowed me to start with the Lady Doctors, the blend, and others as we move ahead in this year of 2020 and throughout this decade.
And I love that you said that creating your own tables and not, being able to take your projects wherever you want to go. And that's what we as listeners have to know and learn, that build value, build your own tables, and nobody can stop you from doing nothing that you want to do. You can do what you want to do. Yes.
You know what, Ashley, I am so glad you said that, because normally the process is you develop something, you shoot a sizzle, and then you begin to shop it around. And one of the things I was told, you need to make sure you have names attached and so forth, because if nobody knows you, then, of course, they're not going to open the door and da-da-da-da. But, see, that was the whole thing for me. I knew that these projects that the Lord was allowing me to be a steward over, I knew that they had to have responsible ownership, because I wasn't willing to compromise. And now, don't get me wrong. There's, in some aspects, there are things that you have to do differently, because nothing is perfect. So you have to have insight from others. But I'm talking about the foundation of it. And so, in order to do that, you have to have the mindset of ownership. And God, through this journey, this process, again, He worked that into me of ownership. So for me, I wasn't trying to run, even though it crossed my mind to run to TV One, to BET, OWN, and all the rest of them. But it wasn't something that I was trying to break down the doors to do, because I knew that what they're doing, I can do. See, the internet truly created that level playing field, because basically what it is they do is they have a built-in audience and they have ads. That's how they make their money. Well, you can do the same thing. You've got to have a marketing plan that creates an audience, and then you've got to be able to what? Go out and get ads. Well, you can do what they're doing. It may take a little longer, but it's yours if you build that thing. So it's how bad do you want it? And that's what we're doing right now with the blend. We started with Facebook. I was on Facebook for a year. All the while I was looking for, exclusive, a non-exclusive agreement so that I could at least have it on a channel where I could begin to have sponsors, which would in turn cause me to be able to, build up the finances for going back into the studio to do, the second season, third season, fourth season, and so forth. So what they're doing is exactly what I'm doing. We have a home now on Uplift TV, and you can check with your local providers. I believe it's Direct, Cox, Spectrum, Verizon, and you can see us on Wednesdays at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern, 4 o'clock PST. But Uplift TV, opened that door. So now we've accomplished, we went from being on Facebook for that year, showing up every Wednesday, at the same time, and now we're on Uplift TV. And so now we have the opportunity to invite sponsors to sponsor our show. So again, what the traditional broadcasters are doing, I'm doing that very same thing. So that's how you create your table. But you have to be patient, and you have to be a person who understands why you are doing this. Because if your goal is just to be rich, quickly, and fame and all those things, that's not the right motive to do this thing. Those things come. They come because that's just a part of this industry. But I'm telling you, if you want ownership and you want to be able to help other people do the same, then you have to be patient, you have to work it, and then always remember that you are creating not just for yourself, but for others. This table is created so that you could help feed other folk.
Right. Create space for others. I love that. So I asked all of my guests this question, Lavonda. What did failure teach you on your journey?
Come on, I've had so many failures, girl. I remember one time my father's in heaven now, and he said to me, I remember during the one time it was a really low period, and he said to me, he said, look, you and the curb, you guys are walking the curb, that is, the street curb. You guys are walking, hand in hand, because it seemed like I had, gotten so low. I had made a decision to, to work with somebody and in this industry, and it didn't go the way that I thought it was going to go, and a series of events happened. I got, I had an illness in my body, you name it, anything. My sister passed away at that time. You name it, anything that could happen, it seemed like it happened. And that was really one of the biggest failures in my life, because up until that point, life was really good, and of course I had ups and downs. But this was a time when, I no longer could run to my parents, and I had to suffer some things. And I had lost everything. I mean, I literally was just, I had nothing. And I didn't know what it meant not to have anything, because, they had always pretty much had. My parents took really good care of us. But I didn't even have a place to lay my head, okay? And from that failure, I don't even call that a failure. I call that a time of a time truly of learning, because you have to see what you're made out of. And see, let me tell you, when life comes and it starts throwing those hardships towards you, that's when you find out what you're really all about. And I would say, by God's good grace, and it may sound cliche, but if it had not been for the Lord who was on my side, I don't know where I would be, because I'm telling you, those were times that I didn't even Sometimes it didn't even seem like I was going to make it out. But I had the promise and the hope that God had given me. And so those times have taught me never give up. No matter what it looks like, no matter what you experience, how low you may feel or how low you go, never give up.
Never give up. So what did success teach you?
Well, you're saying it like, it's over. Like, one-time success, at least that's the way I just interpreted that. To me, success, I don't see success like the world sees success, because success is measured in this natural world, I would say, by how much money you have, what kind of car you drive, those kind of materialistic things. For me, success is direct obedience to God. So your question is, you said, what has it taught me? What is it teaching me?
Well, what did success teach you?
What obedience is teaching me, that is better than sacrifice. It doesn't matter. If you don't obey God's voice for your life, you just end up going through the motions of life. Because success is not what I just described to you. Success is knowing that what I believe He's laid upon my heart, as far as the stories that He is, that I believe He's given me to tell, following that, doing it with integrity, doing it to the best of my God-given ability, that success teaches me. Hallelujah. And because I'm only coming into this now, that I'm pleasing my Father in heaven. And that to me, and I know it may sound spiritually spooky and whatever, but you know what? Look, people are not ashamed of the gods that they serve, so I'm not ashamed of the one that I serve. Because it has taken me up until this point of realizing that the rest of this stuff is just really, truly, it comes and it goes. But it's only what you do for Christ that will last. And I believe that God will be able to show what He's given me in heaven, because it honors Him. And so success teaches me that every time I obey Him, I'm edified, I'm built up, but God ultimately is glorified, and lives are transformed as a result of my direct obedience, including mine. That's what I'm learning, what success is about. So that's what success means to me, not the other aspect. Now, I'm not saying that you don't need monies. I'm not saying you don't need houses, cars, land. We need that. I'm not pie in the sky. What I am saying is those things are added as you obey God's calling for your life.
And that's true.
I bet you didn't expect all of that, huh, Ashley?
I love that, because everybody has their own definition of success. I love it. I love hearing a different perspective. So we are in a new decade, a new year, Lavonda. So what can we expect from you in 2020?
Say that again, Ashley. You cut out.
We are in a new decade and a new year. So what can we expect from you in this year of 2020?
You know what, Ashley, for 2020, I expect that the blend will have a second, third, and fourth season, because we generally do 8 shows a season, 8 to 13 shows a season. So within this year, we can do about 3 more. I expect that we will have a couple of spinoffs from the blend. And then I expect this movement to move further towards the continent of Africa and the Caribbean as well. So I'm looking forward to the blend, manifesting as that movement in 2020. And I'm looking also to bring into fruition, into production, a film that has been near and dear to my heart for, I'd say, close to 20 years now. It's based on the biblical narrative of Hosea. And so I'm looking forward to start production on that sometime this year as well.
I love that. So for our listeners that are listening, be sure to follow Lavonda and, and listen to get involved with the blend to see all the great things that I know that she's going to do with the blend this year. So would you please tell our listeners, Lavonda, how they can follow you on all social media platforms and support you and book you and get involved?
Well, first of all, Ashley, thank you for the opportunity to even be a part of creating your table. I think this is awesome that you are even going out of your way to bring folk on to talk about their personal journeys and, and how we can be an insight into other people. Because I know for me, listening to you and others like you, it totally keeps me encouraged. When I see people like yourself, it's creating your own platforms where we have the opportunity to share our stories, because normally if you don't have this big name, you're not able to even come and, to share your story. But because you have created such a platform, I can come on here and I can share my personal journey and be just as honest as I possibly can be about how everything is not always, coming up roses, but your journey is your journey. And if we will understand that God never promised that there wouldn't be any, tests and trials on the road, but He definitely, when He promised us that He would, give us certain things or do certain things through us. But if we can learn to just, this is something that I'm still learning, and I've had to go through things so that I could get to the point of where I am, that the promise is yea and amen. It does not go away. It does not go away. It doesn't matter what you've been through, what you've done, who you've done it with, what somebody may know, how they malign you. It doesn't matter. If God has spoken something over your life, the only person that can stop it is you. You. And so if you can muster up some strength to say, okay, I'm going to pick myself up and I'm going to just take a step, trust me, God has people positioned all around you. You may not be able to see them or know them when they'll come, but they will come because He knows where you need to be. He knows where I need to be. So, people that want to reach out to us, we welcome it. Listen, I'm not trying to pretend that we're there. The blend is growing. We're not there where I know God has will take the blend to, but we would love for people to be a part of this movement. Be a part of the movement because you want to grow within yourself. You want to become whole spiritually, mentally, physically. That's my whole thing. That's what I'm working on. Spirit, mind, body. Reminding myself that I'm a whole person and that my spirit has to be tended to in order for my mind and my body to carry it out. And therefore, you can reach us at theblendtalk.com. I believe that's the website. And then we're on Facebook at The Blend Talk Show. We're on Instagram and Twitter at The Blend Talk as well. I mean, I'm not a big social media person, but I'm having to learn more about it because I'm involved in it. But that's how you can reach us and join us. And if you're interested in sharing ideas for the show in its first season, I can assure you in its second season it will evolve more into what I envision this to be. I want this show, The Blend, that is, to be a show that deals specifically with a theme for the season, and then we subsequently carry that theme out in the episodes that are produced. It's not the typical talk show where it's just a talk fest and we're talking about necessarily the headlines. What this particular show is, it's more evergreen, and we deal with issues that challenges that are being faced by women, particularly women of color, but in general, women everywhere can relate to the challenges that are being faced, amongst Black women, and therefore the blend is a talk show, like I said, that moves more with purposeful talk, opposed to just talking about stuff that's going on in celebrity world and other things. We are really dealing with challenges that are being faced by Black women. So catch us at theblendtalk.com again, the Blend Talk Show on Facebook, the Blend Talk Instagram and Twitter. So that's how you can reach.
So please follow and support Lavonda. She's done some amazing things. Lavonda, again, thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to come to the table, and I can't wait to invite you back.
Hey, and we can't wait to have you on the show as well. So thank you, Miss Ashley Little. Yay!
You're welcome. I look forward to working with you in the future. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
You got it. Bye-bye.
I would like to give a special shout to my mentee, Sarah, from Tennessee State University, and my mentee and intern, Vontaria, from Winston-Salem State University. You all may follow me on Facebook at Ashley Little and on Instagram at _Ashley A. Little. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Creating Your Seat at the Table, where Ashley speaks with corporate professionals, celebrities, entrepreneurs, authors, and speakers who are transitioning or have transitioned to entrepreneurship.